Okay, welcome back to another week's episode of the Steve Sully Study. I'm doing a Zoom podcast with two great gentlemen in front of me. This is quite a different conversation I'm having today because, as everybody knows, I'm in the art space. I predominantly work on the street art sector or contemporary street art with an artist called Richard Hambleton. I've got a Richard Hambleton behind me, and the whole studio at Woodbury House is full of Richard Hambleton works. Over the last 12, 18 months, the conversation of NFTs have been coming up quite a lot. I also done a Sotheby's art and finance course, and a big part of that course was to do with the digital art space and NFTs. So I have in front of me Andy Rogers, who is a digital artist, and I also have Barney Broom, who's an author, and someone that has put together some documentaries and films, if I'm correct in saying that, Barney.
That is absolutely correct, yes. We have indeed.
So we're going to be talking about your collaboration project, and I want to talk a little bit about your backgrounds. Part of the birth and the reason why I started my podcast is to inspire a younger demographic. So I've said this story plenty of times, but before I got into the art space, when I was a kid at school, I wasn't very academic. Didn't really resonate with me. And unfortunately, back then, I'm 35 years of age, there was no such thing as social media or certainly podcasts. So looking back, had there been a podcast, it might have given me a bit of insight, inspiration, education on people's journeys, and therefore could have shaped my own sort of future. And that's why I like to interview artists, maybe sometimes celebrities, entrepreneurs, athletes, so I can give the audience some value. And I'm hoping this conversation is going to be exactly that with you guys. All right. So anyway, sure. Thank you for your time, guys. So let's just start with the project in hand then. How did you two come together, and what is the project that you're working on?
Well, we came together, if I kick off then, Stephen, linked up by Phil Mutton, who's associated with us to work on this project. Phil had this idea that he thought that obviously beginning to look at and study NFTs and all that goes with that maybe it would be quite a development to perhaps take book cover art and develop that digitally. Phil and I have made a lot of films. We both work, as does Andy, of course, in the film industry. But Phil and I had a long association of making pictures. Phil knew that I was an author with 5 novels, as it were, to my credit, and linked Andy and I up together, although we did know each other before all this, with the idea of creating a piece of visual work out of some book covers. And the result is Andy's work.
Okay, good stuff. And is that always been your background then, Barney? You know, films, being an author. Yep. Is that what you fell into when you come out of school?
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, obviously, I wish I was 35 again. I've had a lifetime in media. I've had originally, I started out as a director, but then rapidly got into writing my own stuff for various projects that I was working on. So writing has always been a part of my filmmaking stuff, more as a screenplay thing. In fact, all my novel ideas come from screenplays that I was either pushing or developing at some time or other in my career. I think it's probably germane or pertinent to point out at this point that the book covers that we decided to develop, NFT wise with Andy, involved this character of mine called Podrick Moon, who is this boy who's a computer games whiz and has developed this alternative reality for himself, enabling him to apparently live inside a computer game. So that's that's where that comes from. And Andy's development of that, transferring that into the digital animated work, and it's also animated the work he's done, has really picked up the zeitgeist, if you like, of what Podrick's all around, and transposed it artistically, pictorially, in a really exciting way.
Good stuff. So look, let's introduce yourself, Andy. So I know you're a digital artist. I think when I asked you before, in actual fact, it's something quite more recent for you, this chapter, because you wasn't actually a digital artist before. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, I was similar to you. I didn't gel with school at all. when I was a kid, and I kind of randomly fell into late night venues and club worlds a long time ago, and ended up having kind of 28 venues in the end, all across the country, and then just decided I needed to do something else, and I actually went to uni at 37,
Okay.
and did a degree, and came out of it, and then kind of got into the animation side of things and the graphic side of things, and then that was about, I guess, about 12 years ago. Yeah, about 12 years ago now. And then I met Phil, and then Phil introduced me to Barney, and then I mean, we've known each other on and off for the last few years, but and done bits and bobs together. But the NFT thing has only sort of come about in the last 6 months.
So there's going to be quite a large amount of people listening to this that probably don't even know what an NFT stands for, or even know what it is. So in layman's terms, to make it really, really simple, what's your breakdown of an NFT? What does it stand for? What does it mean?
It's well, I think it's a non-fungible token, and it's kind of like a cryptocurrency, but I mean, yeah, and you can link artwork to it, but my understanding of it is probably not the best, to drill down into how it's stored, how it's valued, etc., etc.
Yeah, fair enough. There's been some wild auction results. I mean, Beeple is the one that always stands out to people.
Yeah.
$69 million or something crazy like that. And there's been obviously quite a vast amount of different artists with different NFTs selling for well over, north of $1 million. Do you think, from your perspective, both of you two, Barney and Andy, this is a question for both. Do you see the NFT market becoming as mainstream as your conventional art, like canvas artwork and stuff like that? Or do you think it's at the moment a bit of a hype? What's your take on it?
You want to go first, Andy?
Yeah, I think there's legs in it, but I don't think it's kind of it's just a new kind of medium, and it'll sit alongside traditional art, digital art. Whether it's sustainable in the monetary side of things, who knows?
Yeah.
My take, well, first of all, the what we should say with what I think I may have mentioned earlier with Andy's work is that we've done a first here, as far as we know, certainly in the UK, of doing book cover stuff. So within the dare I say it, the established NFT, as I understand it, art world, doing a book cover is a first. I think personally, it's just the beginning of all this, irrespective of the book and inclusive of NFTs. I think NFT is going to grow exponentially. Taking Andy's point just now about the sort of crypto factor, I think it's so on the cusp of new technology and a whole way of viewing things. I think crypto is going to develop more than many people can even fathom right now. I think that will go right across the board, and not only things like Bitcoin and stuff like that. I can see a time when banks are no more and we control our own money and everything else, but that's another conversation you probably won't want to go into right now. But it's just the beginning of the whole thing, and I think NFTs will sit within all that whole world.
Yeah. I like what you said, Andy. It's just another medium, and I think that is exactly right. Because when I was trying to get my head around it initially, when it was first exposed to me, I was almost like thinking, for me, if I had, I don't know, take Richard Hamilton for example. Okay, some of these pieces in the private domain are selling for $1 million, over $1 million now. These big rodeos. Would I want to spend $1 million on a great canvas work by him? Or would I spend $1 million on a Hamilton, but an NFT version? And I think just because I'm still a bit the old school, I would probably want to rather buy a canvas, but maybe the younger demographic or someone who's already got a massive portfolio of canvas works now want to spread their portfolio into a different medium. And I think that's where NFTs come into it.
Yeah, it's a really tricky thing. I mean, it's obviously there's a link with the crypto, and whether you can actually end up using it as currency is another thing. But as I think Barney's touched on something that it will end up being just sort of sitting within the crypto world.
Yeah. And excuse me for being so naive to it, but so the process of making an NFT, because obviously when you're a painter, you know, you literally have a paintbrush and a canvas and away you go. NFT though just seems, you know, for me who's not a tech person, I can barely send an email with an attachment on it. I'm actually like a bit of a dinosaur when it comes to technology. How do you go about sort of even starting the process of making an NFT?
Well, for me, it was kind of the actual artwork was relatively straightforward. I mean, it's kind of you know, I was looking at the book cover and just thinking that he lives between two worlds, and like it's cut between the real world and the kind of digital world, and then it's just a matter of process of making all that up in 3D. But then you have to convert it and everything, and then load it up into the NFT world and make it into an actual thing. And I don't know, I think Barney probably knows a bit more about that than me, because I didn't do it. Phil did it, didn't he?
Yeah, Phil. Where's Phil when you need him, eh? Yeah, I mean, reverting back to what you were saying just now, Stephen, about the whole NFT and where does NFT sit, if you like, in society. I mean, Phil and Andy, what we did when we got started on this is that we've done a couple of film edits of Andy and I talking, which we've shot and edited, which we can link up, and that can also get posted on Instagram. They're on YouTube right now, giving profiles of what we've done. And Phil and I have also been out and interviewed another artist from Scooney, who you might have heard of, who's up in Boreham Wood.
He's been on my podcast.
Exactly. So well, then you do know, don't you? and a great guy he is too. And we're building up a catalogue of this, which we then intend to, because we do believe in the development of the NFT scenario, and so we're looking to do that. I mean, wherever we actually, when we finish the documentary, where we place it is another matter. But we're compiling material for it as we go along.
Well, I definitely support your view of the market is still quite young, but it's definitely developing. And for the simple fact that when I signed up to this Sotheby's art and finance course, big part of it was to do with the digital NFT space. But then also more recently, I went to an event in Park Lane. It was to do with an NFT artist, which I forgot his name now, a foreign guy, really, really cool artist, and also Tiny Temper. And who was backing it was Bonhams, the auction house. And basically it was the collaboration between the NFT, the artwork, and also a piece of music produced and made by Tiny Temper, maybe rapped over. So as you bought the art, it actually had its own iconic kind of, limited to the piece, this, music or tune over the top. And obviously Bonhams is a massive establishment. Obviously they've clearly seen the value in this. And then completely different, I'm a big boxing fan. In actual fact, you could probably see my black eye. I'm an active boxer myself. I spar a couple of times a week. It's, my favorite thing. Anyway, going back to the point, I watch a lot of boxing, and Canelo Alvarez, who fought Billy Joe Saunders in recent months, they also, on the fight, they released, I think it was the first of its kind, an NFT to signify the fight. I don't know how much it went for, but I think it was in the tens of thousands of dollars. So you got sports people. You've obviously got authors like you guys, what you're doing. You've obviously got the conventional sector, which is, Bonhams endorsing these kind of collaboration projects between music and art, digital artwork. Yeah, I just think it's an exciting area. And I think as more and more people get involved, I think it's just going to become a bit more normal, rather than, it can be perceived as quite complex sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking up on that. I'm actually I mean, I haven't done it yet, but I'm having several of the novels are being audio recorded. And I thought, well, actually, what about placing that up on it's not like a music thing. You can place a book up on an NFT, an audio book, and then have the resale value on as, mint it. But again, it's any which way to get to Rome, isn't it? It's just a whole, as you just said earlier, it still is a very new factor. But I suppose what we're really doing is exploring different avenues of the whole thing, which has to be pretty exciting, I'd have thought.
Yeah, I was going to ask you the kind of goal and the ambition, because you obviously got the book, the novels, and you're an author. Why didn't you just do the conventional thing, which probably has worked for you time and time again in the past? You've obviously become a successful person doing what you do. Why now have you decided to do this NFT aspect? Is it to make money from the NFT? Is it to give it a different kind of twist on what you're doing? Is it going to try and promote the book a bit more? What's the goal?
You've just said three things: making money, profiling the book, and it's new, it's different. That's exactly what I've done it for. And yes, money's not to be despised. So that's a factor. I think in the end, though, it interested me. It kind of like intrigued me really, because it is such a learning curve. And I can see a way of gaining for on the book side of things more exposure from my novels. So I think that's all right. Then as I said to you earlier, I'm not quite so young as I was. So actually looking at this, I think in this brave new world, it's a kind of like a really interesting thing to be getting into. And I'm looking for new things, not always looking back in time, if you follow me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And when are you planning to launch this, Andy and Barney?
Well, what's your take on that, Andy? When we're going out,
I'm sorry.
It so excited you, didn't it?
Yeah. I've kind of in yours and Phil's hands. I think the sooner the better, really. Once we get all the press together and everything, and it's
exactly, yeah.
To go. And if it takes off, we can do another one, because you've got 5 books.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, I certainly think. Sorry, I've gone, Steve.
Yeah. So I was going to ask as well. How are you going to launch? I mean, you got your conventional marketing and PR and stuff. Anything else? How are you going to get the word out that this is not just a release of a novel? This has actually got a different element to it, which is the NFT. How are you going to run that?
Well, maybe we bring Phil in at this point. I mean, we've been in touch with Fraser about that, and he's somebody that we're looking to. We've been talking about, who I know you know, and that whole profile that's something that we are looking at right now. Because obviously, what we don't want to do is, as it were, is go off half cock. I think it's relevant for me to say on this broadcast that. All right. If I written these novels, I think Andy's interpretation is absolutely fantastic. I mean, his work, both as a filmmaker and as a digital creative artist now, is really, really come on. And I think the fact that it's animated it's a 10-second piece. It really has given it a life. So I will go as far as to say this. I don't think we don't really want to launch until we really got all our ducks in a row, as it were, and that's because. But so we've got the work now, and it's how we actually post it up that is, of course, going to be critical.
Yeah, good stuff. And I think I overheard you both say that you've got other novels in the pipeline, so you're planning to roll this one into the next, basically, and keep it going.
Well, I'll roll into that first, then Andy will pick up on the visual creative thing. Perhaps 3 of my 5 books involve this kid, this young guy, right? And so the first novel, which I suppose reflects that Andy's done now, is Podrick actually creating this the whole thing of ultimate alternative reality, which is what it's called, UAR. And so that's the first thing. And then he goes off and has these adventures with Napoleon, etc., because he happens to be in a Napoleonic Wars game. And then, secondly, the second book is called Moon River, which is what involves him with Abraham Lincoln and the American Civil War. And the latest one, Moon Landing, is all about JFK and Dallas and the assassination, et cetera, et cetera. And Podrick can change things as to what happens. And the reason it's called Moon Landing, apart from being a play on his surname, Podrick's surname, is obviously Kennedy's inspired the Apollo space missions. So he's having orbital adventures there, but that's to be discussed with Andy. But those, I think, the alternative reality thing, which Andy has gone on record as saying inspired him, has given it a really interesting dimension. It's not just should we say, a more conventional novel. It's because of the novel's content that it's actually inspired Mr. Rogers down there in Brighton to create his work. Is that fair, Andy?
Yeah, you're pretty much there, Barney.
I know behind this project, there's something almost a bit. I was going to say a bit larger, but there's something in the background, which is the documentary. So you guys are going around interviewing and aligning yourself with other people in this space. So if you can tell me a bit more about the kind of documentary aspect of it, that'd be interesting to hear.
Thank you. Well, I guess I don't want to, I want to get back to you in a minute, Andy. Phil and I have done several interviews now with different people, and Scooney being probably the best known. And we also interviewed a young lady who attended, and I'll have to get her name, on that shoot. Scooney is, well, you obviously from your own blog with Scooney, he's quite an experienced guy and indeed a very talented guy, and it's really building up a profile of more artists who are doing this. And we just because as you said earlier, still a lot of the mainstream public don't really know too much about NFTs. Bringing that. I mean, whether we launch it on terrestrial television or whether we actually get the documentary out onto YouTube, even, it's still going to broaden out the interest of the whole subject. And so it's kind of like it's a learning curve, isn't it? We're all learning about it. And in fact, Scooney, when interviewed, we were talking about, he comes from a sort of film. He comes from a film background, doing special effects for motion pictures, etc. So his stuff is, this is all very new to him, and it was really getting his take on how he felt, where it was going, and where it might lead his creative work. Which is so I think must be a lot of the people that you're dealing with now, Stephen, are all kind of like, we're all feeling our way along, I think, aren't we? And it's all because it's so new. It's something that people they're still trying to grapple with in some ways, don't you think?
I think so. And with the documentary, when are you planning to kind of finalise that and also launch that?
It's probably going to take us between now and Christmas to go and get another half a dozen people to interview, because obviously it will be the documentary will be built up like that. As I said, I mean, given that Andy's starting out with us on this project, he was the first guy obviously we interviewed. The other lady by the name was Calypso Bene. I don't know whether you know her. Bene. She's a young lady who comes from a classic art school background, but is breaking into NFT art, digital art. We're going to compile, I should think, probably 8-10 interviews with people. That's going to take us the next 3 or 4 months, and then we'll cut it together. I suppose, really, from our point of view, the book cover art is where we've attacked this because that really is original to us right now. But even so, the documentary won't just purely concentrate on that. It's definitely going to look at the whole art profile. Probably have to come and interview you visually.
Mm-hmm. So, Andy, have you got any mock-ups or any first drafts of the design of the NFT?
I've got. I've got the original. I don't know if you've seen it.
I think it might have been on them links that Phil sent over to me potentially.
Let me just find it.
And are you gonna actually auction it off, or is it gonna be a fee and then someone can buy it? Phil's kind of looking after that side of it.
Yeah, that side of things. I'm just kind of here, just doing the artwork.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want me to screen? Do you want to screen? Have you seen it in motion?
Not too sure. Is it? I mean,
it's going to be a limited. Sorry.
you, Barney, do you come up with the front cover yourself on your novels, and you're basically making an animation version, Andy, or do you change it completely?
While he's finding it, we got together. I mean, there were existing covers. Andy and I met up and spoke about it, and then and really it was more a discussion about the concept of what the book was about. So it wasn't just a random scenario. And when you do get, whether Andy can share his screen or he pings it over to you subsequently, one of the things that Andy did on this piece of work, by the way, is you don't see Podrick's face. So he sort of, as I've interpreted it, heavens, I'm describing your work, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, if I can, if you want to do a screen share,
how do I have to do that?
You just have to give me permission.
You're the host, yeah.
Yeah. Hence what I said earlier. I'm not very good with the technical stuff. So
well, we can ping it to you.
I'll just do it now. You should be able to do it.
Yeah, I've got it. Can you see that?
Yep.
Oh yeah. It's really cool.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Really cool.
Yeah, so there it is.
Fantastic. And there he is looking out into the big into space. It's fantastic. It's a great reflection. By the way, Stephen, it will be a limited edition that we market.
Okay, and how many limited editions are there going to be?
I think that's probably yet to be decided. Something like, I figure that 199, which is a random figure.
Mm-hmm. All right, fair enough. How do you guys, or more directed at you again, I guess, Barney, but how do you come up with your ideas with the novels and stuff? Because in some ways, you're very much an artist yourself, aren't you? Because you have a blank canvas and you've got to come up with a narrative and a story and an idea. Very, very similar to any artist, really. So how do you stir up the creativity in your own mind?
Well, that's a big question, that. Well, you probably, three of us know that, and any other listeners. I anyway think visually. So although I write, and funnily enough, there's a bit of commonality. I also did a pre-dip year at Brighton Art School years ago, and Andy attended Brighton as a student. So there you are. That's another link to Andy and I as an artist. So I've always been to a visual, and I write visually, and that's fair. And my Haute Cuisine, which is the first novel I've written about a man eating a restaurant in Manhattan, it's a comedy, a dark comedy, came from a screenplay of mine called Cannibals, and I've just written another novel called Chimera, which is all about an Armageddon and China making an attack on the States and stuff like that. All my things, they all have a bent towards making motion pictures, if you like, and movies. Podrick Moon, originally I wrote the series as a thing for HTV, for the television company, as a kids television idea. It was optioned off. But the fact that they had a change of commissioning agent didn't see that it got made. So I thought, well, I've got the rights back now, so I believe in this. I think it's a great idea for a story. Hence, I started writing these Podrick Moon stories. The other thing about Podrick Moon, of course, is that I can write them forever. He can go anywhere, this kid now. So I think that as a sort of, I don't want to keep using the phrase "brave new world." It's a kind of like an exciting thing because you can go anywhere with him. And that's obviously what Andy picked up on the imagery that he's used for the digital book cover art.
Yeah, solid stuff. But a question for both of you, just going off a little bit off piste here, changing the subject only slightly. Last 12, 18 months, the whole entire world has been hit with this unknown virus, really. Obviously, lockdown measures, there's been restrictions. It's really disrupted a lot of industries. Question to both of you: how's it affected your own personal lives, and how's it affected your business side of stuff?
For me, I work from home anyway, so for me that hasn't been such a big deal. I've been really lucky like that. The only kind of thing that fries your brain is, I'm pretty sure the same with anybody, is that human interaction with other people, especially if you're making films or artwork or anything like that, and you're the only person who ever sees it. You get kind of blinded by it. So the only downside of being stuck at home all the time is that you don't get another set of eyes on it, or you don't get a group kind of, maybe why don't you try like this, or why don't you try like that kind of thing. But other than that, and not being able to go out, it's not had a massive effect on me, other than the fact I've actually become busier than I was, because everybody's kind of stuck at home and they can't go out and they just want online content.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always said the same thing about this scenario of COVID and the restrictions. And, even when economies go through recessions, there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And that's facts of life. Some people are going to relish this opportunity and some people are going to be at the mercy of it. And I think it all starts with mindset. I think if you can shift your mindset and find angles and the silver lining with these uncertain times, I think you can put yourself in quite a lucrative position. But I think if you sit back, complain and kind of moan about the situation, they're the people going to actually be hit quite hard. And you guys all seem to be go-getters. So Barney, how's it affected you and also business?
Oh, dramatically. Phil and I were back in China just over a year ago, filming a series of commercials, and due to go back there and make several more ads for various different entities in China. Quite ironic, given everything that's happened to the world and China. We were only about 300 miles from Wuhan, actually, when we were out there.
You brought it back, didn't you, Barney?
You are?
You brought it back with you, didn't you?
Yeah. You know how fond I am of you, Andy. So what I did in relation to what you've just been talking about, Stephen, is absolutely get writing. This time last year, I only had 3 books, and I now got 5 books. So I've just turned that. Now, right now, financially, that isn't where I want it to be. But as you've just said, you either get out there and whether you're hustling in the ether or whether you're hustling physically, you're still hustling. And so I've written 2 novels in the last 12 months. So it hasn't been, as far as I'm concerned, wasting time. How I transfer that into literary success and success per se is again resides with me. But again, going back to the NFT thing, that's another angle I'm involved in this, because as I said to you earlier, I think it's an exciting new opportunity.
For sure. When you first started your careers then to now, how would you say the landscape of your market, industry, your sector has kind of evolved or changed?
For me, my client base has just got bigger and bigger, because if I get bored, I'll learn new bits of software. So that'll open up new avenues, new clients, things like that. So when I remember, because I went to uni really late, I remember coming out and spending another year or so just learning other bits of software, just to reinforce what I already had. So now, if I go and see a film, or if I go and see something, well, I haven't been seeing film for over a year, but you know what I mean. If you watch stuff online or whatever, and I try and work out how it's done, reverse engineer it, and then if I can do it, I'll try and sell it out. So for me, that's kind of, it only really gets bigger, touch wood.
Yeah. Okay.
For me, the world has just changed. My hair color, I've said earlier, my lifetime I've spent most of my working life in media. I started out as a publisher, actually. I worked for Michael Heseltine at Haymarket, and then set up my own magazine, and which is called High Five for Pleasure, which was a high fidelity journal. In fact, one of my clients used to be Alan Sugar. There you go. So, but the whole, don't forget, when I started out in working, a mobile phone didn't exist. So when I say you work it out, it's just been absolutely the whole world. We haven't, thank God, had a world war in the last 50 years. Or a global war. What's the most exciting thing that happened in all our lives? It's got to be IT, of which NFT is a part of that. The explosion of IT and that's the way to go. And one of the reasons, in my opinion, why Andy's so successful is because he's a maestro and a master in that format. And I only see such work growing all the time. It's going to be, hence the crypto thing. I said to you earlier about where I think society could go, and I think what I think is going to happen in the world, not just NFT but the whole global thing, is that individuals are going to have more responsibility for all their aspects of their lives like never before. And I think that you get a wallet when you have an NFT or you've got a cryptocurrency, and I think that's what's going to happen in society generally. It's only just the beginning.
I definitely agree with that. So what is the actual project collaboration called or titled?
Andy and Barney.
I don't know if he's got one, is it?
Well, I suppose we call the artwork, Stephen, Podrick Moon Liberation. That's what it's called. So I suppose that's its, dare I say it, and they are a motion picture company. That's its working title.
Okay.
I said to you earlier, we're still starting out on this. We're a couple of kids, aren't we, Andy?
yeah, you know it.
And part of the things that you've raised about, you've got your 5 novels. There's obviously going to be 5 different NFTs. They're all limited editions. You're going to have PR marketing. You're going to have a massive amount of energy and buzz around it, which is very, very exciting. What are your other goals jointly and individually over the next 5 years? What are you looking to achieve?
Andy.
Oh my God, it's one of those questions, isn't it? You get asked at an interview. You know what? I'm goal-wise, I'm pretty happy where I am. Obviously, I'm driven by work quite a lot, but I don't work to live. I do it because I like it. And for me, it's all about tech, really. I love the tech, and I love the kind of new side of tech and the movement of software and the kind of stuff like that. Really, it's not.
Okay.
I haven't got a set plan. I'm lucky I'm still here, really. I just wander around life with my eyes closed most of the time.
You stay alive, boy. For me, Stephen, I've got. I want to write more novels. I've got a project. I lecture on the history of Hollywood professionally, and I've got a project going which basically traces Hollywood from Edison in the 1890s to today. Telling the story through the moguls who founded Paramount and Universal and the whole thing right the way through. And I'm looking to get that in with a Netflix or Amazon Studios, and that's where I'm coming from. So that's going to give me plenty of activity in the next 5 years.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful. Barney, you sound to me you're quite well-rounded as far as you've had your finger in different markets and different sectors. You also strike me as a man who's probably well-travelled. Am I right in saying that? Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, that is true. I was going to be facetious and say I'm totally screwed up. No, well, yeah, all right. You have a few years under your belt. It seems to me you want to have a balance in life, really. I've been incredibly fortunate in working in the film industry, if I still call it that, in media. It's not the most secure of ways of life, but I've got into adventures that I would never have had in any other facet of existence as I can figure out on the planet. Phil and I were involved with the United Nations making some vignette films on climate change. So, a couple of years ago, our heroes were to be found in Mongolia and Fiji and Central America, and it happens on a phone call. And as you know that, I'm sure in your own life, you never know what's going to happen. And I think that really going back to what you were saying earlier about, obviously the particular subject of COVID and global change, The thing to do is again to really sort of reflect what you were saying, is that you can either think, oh my God, the world is in a terrible place, and the world is in a very difficult time right now, it seems to me. But when I say embrace it, you either go forward, don't you think, and find new avenues to explore, and really in a kind of way have new adventures, or you curl up and rot. Well, I'm just totally disinterested in that, and I know Andy is. So, one door closes and another one slams in your face. You've got to look towards opening those doors and embracing life.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
In both of your sort of views and your areas of expertise, like, who inspires you? Who? I'm not saying you want to be like anybody else. Like for me, I know boxing, right? There's obviously my favorite boxers. Obviously, you want to take the very, very best parts of their styles and their mindset and their training into my own life. But I don't want to be like them, but I get a lot of inspiration from them. Who would you say inspires like you in your sectors?
For me, I love like really old Disney or hand drawn animation, like cell animation. That is to me is just like the best kind of form of art. It's like the amount of hours of time that those guys put in and what they came out with. And those, I don't know if you can see those plane cameras that Walt Disney invented. That gives that sense of depth through his kind of early cartoons. That kind of stuff really kind of makes me want to be better than I am already. And it's already been done, but it's a real art form, that is.
So you're a fan of that guy? Is it iWorks? That extraordinary name he has. Do you remember Walt's co-driver? Amazing guy, isn't he? Yeah.
There were so many of them that he was a bit of a slave driver, but they all were, they were all so talented. Today you can do it. Well, not a touch of a button, but it's so much easier to do it these days than it was back then. But those guys had it going on. I love new tech, and I love some of the Marvel films are great, and I'm obsessed with aliens and that kind of thing. But those guys were something else.
Yeah, amazing.
As far as I'm concerned, well, the inspiration actually about sort of like a life course really doesn't. I can cite to you all the great. I was quite a big fan of Alan Parker, the director. Bugsy Malone and all that sort of stuff. And then you can get into people like Stanley Kubrick, who had a most extraordinary. Those both being filmmakers, of course, as opposed to authors. I think really my feeling about life, but it's bigger than motion pictures really, is I'm a fan of people who again, reflecting what you've just been saying, who have a go. You got to never give up. You got to find another way through. And I know you're interviewing us, but you're probably an interesting guy to interview yourself. If you get these things and you get these difficulties, and you think, kind of, how am I going to find a way through that? So I tend to find my inspiration from anybody really who's when you do check out and fall over, you don't want to think, well, I never had a go. And you've got to, very few people. You take somebody like, and obviously he's now part of the establishment as rather than a kid 40, 50 years ago, like Spielberg. Well, Spielberg was directing Joan Crawford at 16, So everybody says, oh, yeah, well, he got lucky. No, he's a very talented guy, Steven Spielberg. He'd actually been making films since he was 8. So he was obsessive as a filmmaker. But, you have to go and find your breaks, don't you? You have to go and get out there. It's no good, just rolling over and not having a crack.
You definitely have to create your own opportunities. I would second that. It's been really, really good talking to you guys. Is there anything about your project and about the market and also about the documentary that we haven't covered that we want to raise?
I know. I think we're going to obviously maintain communication with your own good self. We'll let you know how we develop the documentary, particularly, and what we're doing. And thank you very much indeed for your time and your help.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen.
I'm really looking forward to seeing both the documentary and obviously this project between you two. After this, please send me over your Instagram handle so I can make sure I can weave that into the episode. Last final question. When I come up with my podcast many years ago, well, say many years ago, 3 years ago, I come up with my own kind of mantra, which goes like this: be happy, never content. I've got my own interpretation of it, but I always like to ask my guests, what is your own interpretation of, inverted commas, be happy, never content? I'll start with you, Barney.
Thank you for that. Be happy, never content. Never lose sight of your dream.
Powerful. And you, Andy?
Oh man, you just never be complacent. You can never be complacent.
Good stuff. All right. Well, thank you for your time, guys. And I'm really looking forward to hearing this one back. This is going to be out in a few weeks' time. Everybody go and follow their journey. Make sure you're keeping an eye on their project. And watch this space, because the NFT market and the way the whole kind of, as you just said, Barney, a short time ago, how life has evolved and adapted and changed slightly. I think this is an exciting chapter for all of us.
Good stuff. Well, thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you.
Right.
All right.
Thanks.
Be happy, never content. Speak to you guys soon.
Take care. Bye now.